President Trump stated that the use of an autopen makes the pardons issued by his predecessor Biden ineffective, but this claim is controversial. In a post on social media platform Truth Social on March 16, U.S. President Donald Trump declared that the preemptive pardon issued by his predecessor, Joe Biden, for members of the House Committee investigating the January 6, 2021 Capitol riot is meaningless, useless, and invalid. According to the White House chief, this stems from the fact that the former president signed using an autopen, a technology for replicating signatures automatically. Trump argued that Biden's use of an autopen means he did not personally sign the pardon, and more importantly, he knows nothing about them. Hence, these pardons would not be recognized. The idea that President Biden used an autopen to sign important documents was initiated by the Oversight Project, a branch of the Heritage Foundation, a long-standing conservative research organization based in Washington, in a post on social media platform X on March 6. This project played a key role in spreading misinformation about non-citizens voting in last year's elections. In the post, the Oversight Project claimed that they had gathered signature documents from Biden's 4 years in office and found that almost all were signed using an autopen, except for the statement withdrawing from the presidential race last year. However, experts point out that most of the documents reviewed by the Oversight Project are those published in the Federal Register, which publishes executive texts with electronic signatures, not original signatures from the president. The original text with the president's signature is kept at the National Archives, where the Oversight Project does not have access. To see how many used an autopen, it is unclear whether former President Biden actually used an autopen to sign the documents that President Trump referred to. The White House and the U.S. Department of Justice have not commented on the claims made by the White House chief. Biden's team has also yet to respond. In fact, an autopen is a general name for a type of machine that replicates signatures with real ink, allowing officials and celebrities to easily sign various documents, letters, and items in large quantities. Autopens are machines about the size of a printer, with a robotic arm attached to a pen that uses it to replicate a pre-programmed signature. The AutoPen Company, based in Maryland, which manufactures these devices, stated that they have been used by schools, government agencies, and other organizations for over 60 years. AutoPen has long been a tool for influential leaders around the world, allowing them to more effectively allocate their time and energy to important issues without diminishing personal interaction, the company emphasized. The predecessor of the autopen was a signature replicating device from the 19th century, allowing the writer to move two pens simultaneously. It was patented in the U.S. in 1803, produced the following year, and was frequently used by President Thomas Jefferson during and after his term. "Now, I cannot live without my letter replicating machine," he wrote in 1809. Later, a man named Robert D. Shazo, Jr. researched the original designs of the signature replicating machine while working at a Navy torpedo factory in Virginia during World War II. The first order received by D. Shazo came from the Secretary of the Navy, and this device quickly became popular within the U.S. government. D. Shazo, who owns the Automatic Signature Technology Company based in Virginia, shared with the press in 1983 that about 500 autopen machines were used in the Washington, D.C. area, from Congress to various government agencies. According to the Chappell Manuscript Foundation, Presidents Harry Truman and Gerald Ford are also reported to have used autopen to sign some documents. President Lyndon Johnson publicly revealed this by allowing photos of the autopen device during his presidency. This story made the cover of the National Enquirer in 1968 with the headline, "One of Washington's Best-Kept Secrets, a Robot Doing the President's Job." U.S. presidents appeared to use autopen more frequently in the latter half of the 20th century, including John F. Kennedy, Jimmy Carter, and Richard Nixon. Barack Obama became the first known president to sign legislation using autopen in 2011 when he extended the Patriot Act while in France. At the time, this led Republican critics to question whether his actions were constitutional. However, this question had already been answered by the Republican administration of President George W. Bush previously. His legal counsel's office published a 29-page document in 2005, concluding that the president does not need to physically perform the act of signing a bill he approves. Instead, the president may sign a bill by directing a subordinate to sign for him, for example using an auto pen, the document stated. The U.S. Department of Justice in 2005 also issued an internal memo emphasizing that documents signed by the president using auto pen are considered legal. Nevertheless, President Bush ultimately did not use the auto pen and decided to fly overnight to return to the White House to sign an emergency law. That year, however, his Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, faced criticism for using auto pen to sign hundreds of condolence letters to the families of soldiers. President Trump has yet to provide evidence for his claims that Biden has misused auto pen. However, according to legal experts, even if former President Biden did use auto pen, the pardons he signed would not necessarily be voided. Article 2. Section 2 of the U.S. Constitution grants the president broad powers of pardon, stating that as long as the person pardoned accepts, the pardon will take effect. The U.S. Constitution does not mention anything about subsequent annulment, meaning that the pardons are binding, ultimately effective, and irreversible. Jay Wexler, a professor of constitutional law at Boston University School of Law, stated that the issue of auto pen raised by President Trump is not worth discussing. More importantly, there is no provision in the Constitution requiring that pardons be put in writing on paper, he stated. The argument that a pardon is ineffective simply because it was signed using an auto pen is wrong from the start, as there is no requirement for a pardon to be signed personally by the president. A memo from the U.S. Attorney General in 1929 also noted that the president's signature is not necessary for a pardon. Neither the Constitution nor other laws specify the manner in which the pardon power is to be exercised or verified. This is entirely a matter for the president to determine, as a practical issue of administrative policy, the memo stated. According to this document, a pardon need not have the president's handwritten signature, but can suffice with a copied signature and be certified by an official in charge of records. Requiring the president to personally sign pardons is entirely unnecessary from a legal standpoint. The U.S. Department of Justice during Trump's presidency has not commented on this memo, nor has it taken any steps to revoke the pardons issued by Biden. In some instances, President Biden's aides have had to go to considerable lengths to bring documents for him to sign. In January 2023, White House staff had to transport a 1653-page spending bill in 3 briefcases to Stedy Croy, where Biden was vacationing, so he could sign it, according to Politico. Last year, an aide had to fly to South Korea for him to sign a law approving $40 billion in aid for Ukraine. However, there were also times when former President Biden used auto pen. White House officials admitted in May 2024 that he had used it to sign an extension of a law funding the Federal Aviation Administration while he was on a trip in San Francisco, using auto pen to avoid any disruption to the FAA's budget allocation. President Trump has implicitly acknowledged there is a potential gray area regarding his predecessor's use of auto pen to sign pardons, but still hinted at a legal battle. "That's not my decision, but the courts," he told reporters aboard Air Force One on March 17th. "But I believe they are invalid and worthless, because I am sure Biden knew nothing about it occurring."